the director of episode 1 and the executive producer of the series, Jonathan Nolan. His friend Tom Jonah. The showrunner, writer, and executive producer, Graham Wagner. And one of the stars of the series, he's the Ghoul and Cooper Howard, Walton Goggins. So we were just backstage talking about the intensity of shooting this series, and a lot of that comes from the practical way you shoot this. There's obviously a lot of visual effects. You're creating a fantastical retro futuristic world, but Jonah, you really try to make it tactile as well when you're directing. So tell me about making sure you don't indulge too much in things that are not real.
I want to start by saying that our visual effects department is the most talented department of the show. We begin every day trying to give them as little to do as possible. The reason for that, on every project, and I learned this growing up with my brother, and his commitment to trying to do things as much reality as possible. The idea being, especially important with this project, because this project is based on a video game, and a series of video games that got more and more beautiful as time went by. You look at, we had a chance to replay Fallout 4 a little bit as we were preparing the show, and that's a gorgeous game. So the prospect that you would go to the trouble of adapting this for a TV show and replace it with, try to compete with beautiful computer graphics with computer graphics, it feels like a losing game. So we did what we always do, which you pack a bag and you get on a plane, you go to Namibia, and you shoot it for real. But I figured something out this time.
For the record, it's not what I always do. I've been fully caught off guard by this process. We're in the middle of filming season 2 right now, and I fear you basically dragged the sickly rabbit from Watership down on stage because we're filming today, and I'm just sort of clinging to my chair with visions. But yeah, you guys answer the real questions. I'll just lose my mind.
We're in it. I think I figured something out as we were going through this. It's not just, you talk about, you go down to Namibia, and there's a shot right towards the end of the first episode where Ellie's character comes out of the vault and walks out, and most of what you're seeing in that shot as she walks out, I would say 95%, that last aerial shot, as she sort of sees the ocean for the first time and then walks away. The only thing we added to that shot is the Ferris wheel. Everything else is practical, everything else is real. And we just happened to find a spot in Namibia that looked a lot like Santa Monica Harbor after the end of the world. I always thought we'd go there for the wides. I always thought you go down to Namibia, you go down and shoot practically for the wide shots. And then I realized as we were going through it, someone asked a question. I was like, oh no, actually the reason we're there is for the close-up.
Yeah.
The wide shots look great. Our artists are so good, they can make it look pretty much indistinguishable. But when you take brilliant actors, even brilliant actors who can make it work in front of green screen, when you take them to a place that actually fills them with awe, they're freed up. You guys are freed up to do all the rest of this stuff.
Mediocre actors.
I was looking past you.
Well, Walton, tell us about that. Working with him as a director, he has real things jumping at you and real goop to sink into. You're wearing an intense prosthetic for half of this performance, maybe more than half.
The goop budget was significant.
There is no bigger fan of Jonathan Nolan than me, and we've had that conversation ad nauseum. We've been in this for 2.5 years. Yeah, right. 2.5 years now. We've started talking, I was surprised. I read these scripts like everybody else, and I've been around the block for a while, and I had an idea of how it was going to be shot in my imagination, and it turns out that everything that I imagined was absolutely wrong. Really, there's an analog version of this experience which I didn't expect, which allowed us in front of the camera to transcend maybe what we would have done otherwise. I can't tell you really what it was, but we are into season 2, and Graham in Geneva had written this incredible scene, and like Jonah does, there was a situation where something jumps out of something. It's all real. There is no CG. It's literally puppeteers with a string, you know, and you're just an actor in front of the camera, just sitting there knowing that something is going to jump out at you. And it does, and it scared the living shit out of me. And the reaction was real. And it's for all the visuals and going to all of these places. It is so tactile. And it is analog in a way that is it's visceral.
And it's never what you want to jump out at you. You know, it's always something bad. And we're working. We try to come up with good things to jump out and hit Walton in the face, but it's just always something. We just go negative, and I'm sorry. I don't know. If you have ideas, just shoot me an email. Otherwise, it's just gonna be more bad stuff coming at you. I'm sorry. I love you, and I'm sorry.
What's a conversation that you guys had about the Gould? Because it's a character that could be, I mean, he's very unrealistic. He's an undead creature in an apocalyptic landscape who's lived for centuries. But you've given him a soul, you've made him relatable. I think there's a lot of ways to read that character and what he represents and what kind of average person can look at him and say, like, I understand where he's coming from. So what's a conversation you had to make this sort of unreal, fantastical character grounded and connected with the audience?
I mean, even before there was a conversation, when Geneva called to say, hey, do you want to work on Fallout? And I heard it was going to be Jonah. I went back to the things I'd seen Jonah make in the past. And I was like, well, that actually could work. You know, because what I think you've done with adaptations is ground them and make them feel real, because that's what we want when we go to see a fantasy or a sci-fi. We want to actually believe it for once and not be told, like, don't worry, it's fake. It's like, no, let's see someone commit to that. And visually, there was an understanding that this was the guy for that, and performance-wise, that this was the guy for that, and that was very early. You were the first. We actually wrote the part for you.
You never want to tell the actors that.
I know. I said it on day one, and it was a huge mistake. You're totally right. I've been paying for it every day. But we wrote the part for Walton, and so we were already kind of on that trajectory of like, well, this is the job, is to take this very pushed world of Fallout that's been, you know, it's got every B-movie trope ever conceived in those games. And the mission is to ground it and make you actually think for a second while you're watching it that this is happening. And you know, I think without these two, I don't know, it'd be a cartoon. And yeah, so it really. I don't have any. I forget the question.
Can I disagree just really quickly?
Reorient the ship. Thank you.
Just to give accolades to these two men and Geneva, who is not here, and all the people that are busy working. I just came. This is Cooper Howard if he lived in Los Feliz on Silver Lake. I just came straight from work, so forget the hair. No, but after spending a day of saying the lines that these guys wrote. And a year with Jonah and what he did with that camera, I've been around for a long time and television for a long time, and it's easy to write a drama that is set in a real place, you know, with dramatic moments. It's fucking hard to write something that is this fantastical. You have to have such a dexterous, is that the right word?
We'll take it.
Okay, yeah, but now I'm tired, 15 hours into my day. But to imagine these scenarios and then at the end of it, ground them in something that is really moving emotionally. And that's what Graham and Geneva have done on a day-to-day basis since this whole thing started. And Jonah captured not only all of it with everything that he's just known for, the comedy in it, like he just, I want to say, he just reinvented this genre in my imagination, because you can read it, it can be interpreted a million different ways, but there is a grounded, tactile, analog version of the humor and the drama. They wrote the words, and he captured it visually. We just said the fucking lines, and I genuinely mean that. And that's when I saw it for the very first time, which was late in the game. I saw it in South America,
So,
and I couldn't really stop crying the first time. I just said congratulations to both of you. You did it. You really did it.
Anyway.
The actor shut the fuck up.
well, you keep going a little longer. Very good.
I feel sort of that there's always an idea behind what you create, and in the case of, there are lots of ideas that follow, but in the case of the Ghoul, something you just said just struck me, Walton, when you said, again, I've been around the block a few times, we've been around a few times, and to me that's what resonated about the Ghouls. If you live any length of time, you start to look back, you find old photographs or old videos, and you see a version of yourself that you don't recognize anymore. Some people will have a midlife crisis and they have that, but you can.
Where are we going with this?
Well, my question is about the depth of this character and how he. One of my favorite scenes is in an upcoming episode when Walton, when the Ghoul is watching an old Cooper Howard tape and really transfixed by what he sees. And I wonder if you could talk about that notion of a world that moves on. People move on. We go through life. We change and grow and evolve, and we can kind of lose touch with who we were if we're not careful. Am I reading what you were intending for this story?
If the question about middle age is more appropriate for Walton. We're doing the 10th anniversary of our Star Wars week. It's a sensitive subject. No, I think for all of us, maybe with this role and with Graham's, I think you speak more to it on the page. But this idea, I think for us, there was a moment where we were trying to figure out where the thing was set. And you in Geneva were sort of playing around with sort of general Western, and as we were scouting, we were thinking, we were talking, finally landed on I think we're being chicken shit about it. I think it's the we're the Hollywood assholes adapting this thing. And I typically don't respond to stuff that's about Hollywood. We live here, I've been here 25 years. There's a narcissism to that feels unappealing, but for this end of the world, postmodern adaptation of a video game that is itself adapting film and television.
Yeah, and about the sort of frivolity of a pre-apocalyptic world, I think Hollywood's a great access point for that juxtaposition. Some self-deprecation kind of afoot going on, for sure.
Every time it rains in this town, it feels like the apocalypse.
Yeah, we want the Armageddon was like do we want this? It felt like we wanted it. Same with the hurricane. It seems like we're rooting for the apocalypse in this town. I don't know what's wrong.
What East Coast people call it a day of rain.
Yeah. And the palpable disappointment that it was just, I was just like, what did you want? And you're like, oh, you wanted death.
It's an earthquake, so it was the hurricane, and even that didn't.
Yeah. Did not sate the bloodthirst of the city.
No, maybe I'm projecting too much onto it, but I felt like this was a story.
No, it's all in there.
This was a story about three different characters who were all trying to figure out who they were, and in the case of Cooper Howard and the Ghoul, this is a guy who's trying to figure out. He kind of knows who he is now, but has lost his tether to who he once was.
I agree. Yeah. It's because of the members in the audience and what you represent. It's not about me, It really isn't. It's about these two guys and what they captured visually and what the words that were on the page. And again, I'm 34 years into my experience, and then to be at this place in my life where today was on par with one of the best days I've ever had at work, and I'm just so grateful that at this point in my life, I've worked with some great people over the course of my life, but that this is the ship that I'm in right now, and to rush here, not wanting to leave that set in order to get here in time, is all because of these two men in Geneva who is not here. It's not easy to pull this off. Certainly, God damn, how much story has been generated in the last decade? A lot. But the way in which they've kind of pulled it off and continue to pull it off, I'm as excited about work tomorrow as I was today, as I was the very first day that we started this experience. And it's with such love, not from just us here, but from every department. And they are as committed and as earnest about this experience as we all are.
What was it like going to the coast in Namibia to shoot those scenes? Because you explore it even further in future episodes, but there are abandoned homes and what look like sort of factory machinery that's just rusting out in the desert. What's it? It seemed like it has a haunted landscape, but what's it like to shoot there?
Right, it's called the Skeleton Coast for a good reason, and it came to us because we were shooting the first season of Westworld. It was a pilot for Westworld, and so we were looking for weird textures, and someone showed me a picture of this place called Kommenskap in Namibia. All these brick houses filled with sand. And what we saw in those sequences, all we did was stick some skeletons, some furniture in there, pretty much exactly as it. We played it as it lay, and I sort of held on to it. It didn't make sense for Westworld because masonry construction, bricks, right? It didn't work for the Western. The American West didn't have all the masonry in the sort of classic Western period that came later. So I sort of held on to it. Had lunch with Todd Howard, this is 5 years ago now, and we had been trying to, reach out to Todd and been told he's never going to let anyone adapt these things. Everyone tries. Then Todd reached out to us, and we had this fantastic lunch. We knew within about 20 minutes, we're like, well, we're definitely making something together. I left the lunch knowing, okay, we're going to do Fallout. I don't know what the story is. I don't know where collaborators are yet, but I've got one location. And so you always have this moment when you travel, you drag the crew. I think it was like 35 hours of flying down to shoot somewhere back into Beyond. This was.
I don't love to fly, by the way, so.
You did well.
Yeah,
There's no direct flight. You've got to do like the Indiana Jones
You go
red line.
L-
like, to this place, to that
LA, New
place.
York, Johannesburg, and then Johannesburg. You spend about 7 hours flying over the place you wanted to be, and then flying back to Johannesburg, back to not Windhoek. Where did we go?
Yeah, Windhoek.
Windhoek was up there.
Windhoek was the scout, yeah.
Anyway, it's called Skeleton Coast because a lot of shipwrecks there. But the scariest part of a shipwreck in the Skeleton Coast is you would survive and get to the beach and be like, we made it! And there's no fresh water for 400 miles. So you didn't make it. You were dead anyway. And the Germans started finding diamonds there in the early 19th century. Late 19th century, early 20th century. They build these old massive towns, and then they'd find bigger diamonds somewhere further down the coast, and they would rip up everything that they could take with them, bathtubs, roofing materials. The only thing they would leave the bricks, they leave, and just left this thing to kind of sit and rot. And so we got down there, and someone said to me at one point we were shooting the first day, and doing that slightly annoying director thing of kind of keeping LA in the van so she couldn't see it until we'd roll the cameras and walk her down, but someone wandered over to me and said, no one has ever shot here before. And I thought, wow, okay. The amount of times that I've walked into the wrong commissary in Brooklyn, I've walked into the Gossip Girl commissary. You can't eat here. You'd be tripping over each other in New York or LA, but to shoot in a place where no one had ever shot before was a really extraordinary thing.
What was it like to perform there in what really is kind of an apocalyptic landscape? Does that get in your head?
Well, it was the most comfortable I was during the entire 9 months it took to film this fucking show. I mean, like, I have all of this makeup on. It was 106-degree heat index in New York, and yeah. So by the time we got there, everybody else was cold, and I was just laughing at everyone else because it was so comfortable. I was lucky enough. I traveled quite a bit, a lot like Jonah, and I spent about a month in Namibia, just kind of bumming around about 7 years ago, but then to kind of go back there in this place and to see, this machinery and what Geneva and Graham had written, for this place after seeing it, it was extraordinary. There's really nothing that you have to do. The camera does all the work, and you're just in awe of, in awe of it visually. But you have to understand, for us in front of the camera. Certainly for me, I've been there 1,000 times, right? So it's something that I see quite often, and but it was the opportunity to actually see it with my own eyes and become comfortable with it, having seen it many times over the course of my 200 years in this world, which was, it was just an extraordinary. People don't do this anymore, not in a corporate environment. Very few filmmakers, very few writers are given permission, like you can count them on a hand, permission to tell their story in this way. And Jonathan Nolan and Graham and Geneva were given that permission, and the rest of us are just lucky that we get invited to the party.
Graham, were there any story points or elements of the screenplay that you would and Geneva would write based on things you would see? Like, would you see like a particularly like ruined place and say like, we got to write something for this? Was that inspirational for you?
Yeah, I mean, we scouted that location, and one of the wildest scouts of my life, which is we flew to Namibia 25 plus hours. We scouted Namibia for 12 hours, and then we flew home again. And it was just a very amazing moment. Where the first spot, if you recall, wasn't a winner, and we were all standing there with jet lag, and then Howard Cummings, our production designer, just was the first to say it and said, "Looks like Joshua Tree." And we're like, we could have driven 2 hours and been here. But yeah, luckily, but that was our first stop. We didn't shooting that spot. And I was like, I'm gonna have jet lag for a year because of this. And then we found the next spot, and it actually changed the whole show. Like, we were really looking at setting the first season in Utah at some point, and the beauty of that coast and the horrible possibility that we would have to VisFX out that coast, that we have to paint it out, just put more sand in this beautiful beach from where Lucy steps out. It changed the trajectory of the entire show.
I think I made a half-hearted pitch that it could be the Great Salt Lake if you wanted it to be.
Yeah.
It'd be better if it was a Pacific.
And it was by the time we're in the van, we're like, we need to rethink this.
Can I just do one story? What a great story! Because it was a diamond mine, it was an active diamond mine, and you had to go through all of these hoops just to be allowed into this space. Like your passport, you had to have it was like its own country. And
we didn't tell you that did we tell you about the full body cavity search?
No, that was a surprise.
Diamonds lying around.
We had to
about
agree on behalf of the entire crew that if one of their spotters saw us picking up something, that they would give us a full body cavity search.
So
We signed your name on the form. We didn't tell you that.
okay, no, you didn't think about that because that was the thing. There's diamonds everywhere, and these guys are there and they're thinking about like beautiful shots and scenes. Like, this is all I was doing the whole time. I was like with my boot, just like, because you couldn't touch the ground. Like, you couldn't put your hands on the ground, so I was just kind of doing it with my foot when no one was around. I pretended to go to the bathroom behind one of these like buildings. I was just like really quickly like, nothing. I didn't find a diamond or get a cavity search.
I don't think there was a single crew member that didn't end the day by checking the soles of their shoes to see if they picked up a free diamond. And,
Paul Simon.
I mean, I was like, oh, we were standing there and be like, oh, I get that song now. Yeah.
But Juan was being characteristically humble about his work and the work of the rest of the cast. I mean, look, we used our usual bag of tricks, and Geneva and Graham wrote some extraordinary script. It all comes down to casting. You can have a fantastic script, you can get all the right brush on but if you don't have Walton and Ella and Aaron and Kyle and the rest of our extraordinary cast, you're nowhere. I mean, you sat in that makeup chair for 4 hours every morning. One of the big challenges and that was one of the things that was scariest about the initial pitch. You guys came up with the idea that it should be an ensemble show, which was a brilliant way to address the open game nature of the games, where you could be anyone. You could be the good guy, the bad guy, somewhere in between. You can join any faction you want to. So the ensemble idea was brilliant, and you guys pitched from the very beginning. We have a ghoul character. The ghouls are in the games as this kind of underclass, and there's this tension and an opportunity to explore all these fun, deep, rich questions. But all I can think to myself was, shit, we're gonna have to delete his nose from every shot. Walt's got a nice nose. But I can't.
Thumbs too.
I couldn't.
Not ideal for this, right?
I was honestly thinking about Voldemort and thinking about others, but I could not think of an episodic series, an ongoing series where they'd taken one of their leads and committed to the idea that we would be doing practical effects and visual effects to that handsome mug for every single shot. And working with the incredibly talented special effects makeup department, Ms. Van Dyke and Jake, the rest of the team, every morning, and you sweating through it, building appliances so that you could be the ghoul, but we can still see your performance. And I think your patience with that process. My favorite story there was Walton's first day on set, and occasionally I will always try and walk the actor onto set, kind of be with them for that first moment. Sometimes it's big, especially with an ongoing series, if it's a hit, you're going to be doing this for a very long time. It's the first moment, first step. And Walt was in the full makeup, and we were shooting in upstate New York. It was very hot, and Walt was crying. It's happened to me once, twice before. An emotional moment. I took you by the hand. I was looking at you, and then I got a little closer and looked at it, and I reached up and I pressed your cheek, and it just oozed. And I realized you weren't crying with sweat. I said, Walt, did you wear the cool suit that we bought you? And he's like, nope.
Well, the last thing I want to ask you is about another one of your co-stars. You were sharing this story with me before we came out, but you do some acting with some animals in this show. And you have an interesting story about dogs and the color greens. Can we share that?
Okay, because it just kind of goes back to the analog kind of reality of this show, and with the direction and the writing and the practicality of dogs and all of the other things that we kind of deal with. There was we had these Malinois, right? Belgium. These are attack dogs, and they're in dog meat. It's like if you watch the show, that's the dog, and there are a few of them, and this group of dogs that Jonah used in New York reacted to the color green. That's what they would attack, and that was kind of the whole thing. And you could kind of put it on the stunt people, and then Jonah would put the camera in a certain position, and then the dog would take off and just latch onto this green thing. That was good. Everybody knew the drill, green was their color and everything else. So then we were in New York and we were shooting on St. Patrick's Day.
Oh man.
And it was the night before St. Patrick's Day, and like right before we were going to bed, we got a universal kind of email. Don't wear green tomorrow. Please don't wear green tomorrow. Very funny.
The pack of dogs made their way down the coast to Boston. No, yeah, and we're still trying to entangle those dogs. They're really. There's another dog in the show named Roosevelt, who's an Aussie Shepherd. I'm a Roosevelt guy myself. That's a sweetie.
Don't wear green to set tomorrow.
Yeah.
Well, guys, thank you so much for being here and speaking with us. Good luck on season 2 as you move forward with that.
Thank you so much.